Hey everybody, today is Sunday, January 21st, 2024, and we are here in Ormond, Florida. I'm actually heading back north, back up to Pennsylvania. I was really only here in Florida for one day. I got here late Friday night, spent all of Saturday in Florida, and now that it's Sunday, I'm unfortunately heading back up north, back to cold, miserable Pennsylvania, although we're having a bit of a cold spurt here in Florida. The last couple of days, weeks, whatever, it's been kind of chilly. It's supposed to be continuing to be chilly. In fact, right now, just having this light jacket on is not really doing it. I should probably have my hoodie on underneath this, or maybe just a heavier jacket on in general. But anyway, heading back up north. But before I continued up there, wanted to stop off here at the Bulow Creek State Park to check out something pretty interesting. And I know it's not these remains of a quarry, although I'm very intrigued by that, and I might have to come back out here to actually check that out. The reason why we are here today is for the Fairchild Oak, which sits right over there, a gigantic oak tree that has some really interesting history that we are going to check out. So this park is actually kind of hopping. When I got here, I honestly thought it's chilly. It's a Sunday. It's chilly. It's kind of off season. If Florida really has off seasons, there probably aren't going to be a heck of a lot of people out here. There are a ton of people out here. Lots of people were parked, lots of people over by the tree taking photos, and lots of people walking the trail. So apparently this park is actually quite popular. I can see why. There's a lot to look at. There's again the tree, which we're going to actually see in person. There's a house, the Harwood House Settlement. We'll actually talk about Harwood in a moment, and again the quarry and whatnot. There's a lot to see here, so I'm intrigued. I will have to come back out to this park at some point to take a look at all the other things this park has to offer and to show and whatnot. But today we're mainly here to talk about the oak tree, because there is some really interesting history behind that, and I want to talk about the tree. And I wanted to see the actual tree with my own eyes. I wanted to see this tree, document this tree, talk about this tree, because again, it's pretty interesting. So I guess while we're standing by the sign, I might as well read it. It says, on this plot of land now known as the Bulow Creek State Park grows the Fairchild Oak Tree. The tree is a live oak tree which stands over 70 feet tall, and its branches spread about 300 feet with limbs that grow into the ground, cradled by the sandy soils of the earth. This tree may seem about 2,000 years old. Interesting. It is estimated to be about 400 to 600 years in age. The Fairchild Oak has lived through hurricanes, fires, wars, the live oak trade timbering, and countless owners. Two names that will stay with this tree forever are Captain James Ormond, who was the former owner, and David Fairchild, who was a botanist that admired and visited the tree. On December 11th, 1955, this tree was named after Dr. David Fairchild. This park contains many acres of hardwood swamps, marshes, forests, and creeks. Interesting. So again, we're going to talk about a couple of those names. And we're going to look at the tree that sits right over there. That tree is very, very large. I love a good old, interesting tree with old, interesting history, and that's what we got right here. I actually walked back over to the sign quickly to read about Harwood House and Settlement. It says eventually Harwood's creditors caught up with him after they received a judgment against him in a New York court. Only a few days later, Harwood was found dead after reportedly falling off a horse near the house in 1895. His death remains a mystery since he had just taken out almost $200,000 worth of life insurance, and it is said he had business disputes over dishonest cattle dealing. Harwood's obituary was featured in the New York Times titled "A Checkered Life Ended." The house fell into disrepair and was torn down in 1987. So I guess maybe the house actually isn't here anymore. Again, I'm not really sure. We're not going to walk the entire property, but apparently the house once stood right here, right by the Fairchild Oak. But the oak tree is also known as the Harwood Oak Tree because he was the original owner of the property. And like it says, his death was a mystery. But from what I was reading online, it's also said that possibly he killed himself. He committed suicide here on the property right by the oak tree. And now the oak tree is actually haunted. This property is haunted Harwood, and the oak tree is actually haunted by his soul, by his ghost, supposedly, from what I was reading. And that really intrigues me. The tree in of itself is really interesting. The land is really interesting, but the story of Harwood and the fact that this was once his property and he died mysteriously and possibly even ended his own life and now haunts the grounds, haunts the tree we're about to see. That is pretty interesting. I love that kind of thing. I'm really tempted. If I had more time, I would totally walk down all these trails and paths that are over here. Look at that. This is awesome. It is beautiful out here. I mean, even though it's really cold and chilly and I'm freezing and trying not to shake the camera too much, look at the Spanish moss hanging from the trees. You can see there's some like swamp down here, probably all kinds of alligators and who knows what down there in the swamp. I will not be going down there, but if that doesn't just scream, if this scene right here doesn't just scream Florida to you, I don't know what does. Although the scene might scream Florida, but the weather, it's screaming northern states. It's screaming, I feel like I'm in Pennsylvania right now. So when it comes to the history of Harwood and how his life actually ended, again, it is a mystery. And from what I was reading online, some people thought it was an accident. Maybe he was murdered. Maybe there was something else sketchy going on, or possibly, again, he maybe took his own life right here on the property. And just look at this tree. This is insane. So some records state that this tree is over 2,000 years old, but actual botanists have come out and apparently studied the tree, and they say, nah, it's probably more like 400 to 600 years old. But look at this thing. I don't think it's picking up on camera. The actual true size of this tree is picking up on camera at all. But just standing underneath it, this thing is huge. It is massive. It is gigantic. And it's a really, really impressive looking tree. Look at the size of this. That is really, really cool. Look at the Spanish moss blowing in the wind. Is this one of the branches here? I have no idea if this here is one of the branches or if this is a tree that has fallen over. No, this looks like a branch coming out of the ground. Look at that. That is crazy. This tree, again, is really, really impressive. And also, supposedly, maybe haunted. Look at that. I'm thoroughly impressed. I get impressed by giant trees, by very old trees. You guys know I love a good witness tree. Up north in the areas of the Revolutionary War, we have witness trees, which are trees that were around during the Revolutionary War. I love visiting them. There's usually giant sycamores. But look at this, giant oak tree. Really, really awesome. I wish the camera would pick up the size of this. I don't really think you guys quite grasp just how, like, maybe if I stand like this, I don't know if you guys quite grasp how big and gigantic this tree really is. It honestly is just huge and massive. And the fact that the branches reach out the way they do, it's like you're underneath like a cathedral roof or something. That is impressive. It does kind of concern me, though, that the thought of one big gust of wind knocking one of these branches down. I mean, you can see they have definitely broken off over time. This is a very old tree, 400 to 600 years old, or possibly 2,000 years old, depending on what you read. I'm going to go with 4 to 6. You can see a lot of branches have broken off over the years. And the thought of one of them just coming down on me, it is windy out here. It's a little concerning, but you know what? Worth it. Worth standing under here. This tree is too awesome. That is amazing. Again, I don't think anything I can do can truly capture just how big this thing is. Look at that. Massive oak tree. there is a sign over here on this rock that says this live oak tree is dedicated by the Lehigh Portland Cement Company to the memory of Dr. David Fairchild, the American botanist who introduced the soybean and many other valuable forms of plant life to the U.S., as this tree has gladdened man's heart for 2,000 years. So will Dr. Fairchild's legacy enrich the lives of future generations. So again, this sign here, this plaque here, I don't know when this was put in. There's no date, but this plaque here says the tree is 2,000 years old. But again, supposedly not the case, more like 400 to 600 years old, which seems more accurate. It is a shame, though, that the tree was named after Dr. David Fairchild. I mean, it's great man. He studied the tree. He came out here. He deserves recognition, but I do feel like that the original owner of the tree should probably get a bit more credit. That's who the tree should be named after. That's who some people say the tree is named after. Some people still call it by its original owner's name, but I'm gonna go with the original owner. So in my opinion, Harwood Oak is what this should be called, not the Fairchild Oak. Harwood Oak, as his spirit supposedly still haunts the tree, still haunts the ground. His ghost is possibly still walking around the property to this day, haunting his tree and all who come to visit it. I would love to come out here at night, but there was a big sign that said the park was actually closed after dusk, so they don't want people out here at night. But I would love to come out here, see if we could find the ghost of Harwood, to see if he really does truly still haunt his tree. Look at all of these little paths and trails that go down here. I saw some people walking down these little paths. I don't know. I don't trust this. Again, as somebody who is from Pennsylvania and has been told many horror stories about swamps and whatnot in Florida, and how you don't really want to go anywhere near them, as they do usually contain creatures you don't want to mess with. I am intrigued. Is that a natural spring? Look at that. There's water actually coming out of the ground right there. I want to say that's a natural spring coming out of the ground, feeding the actual swamp. A lot of the swamps in this area, a lot of the swamps in Florida in general, are actually fed by natural springs. So that might be what that is right there. And you can see over here, looks like an old foundation or something. Maybe this is from the Harwood house. Maybe this is part of something that at one time was used to pump water out of the natural spring. I don't know what that is. It did say on the sign that the old house stood right here, right by the tree. So maybe this is part of the old house. That is interesting. You never know what you're gonna find when you walk down into the woods. Sometimes you might find a natural spring. Sometimes you might find the remains of possibly an old house, or an old house of the old owner of the property, who apparently haunts the land. Or you might get too close to the swamp and find an alligator. It's Florida. You never know. You might also break your ankle on a like palm branch. Jeez. It honestly is kind of amazing how cold it is outside right now. Standing in the sun, it's not so bad, but the temperature is quite low. And standing in the shade with the breeze blowing, it's making Florida quite chilly. I was out in Walt Disney World at Epcot yesterday, as you guys may or may not know if you saw the video. It was very chilly there. I don't know why I'm doing this. I feel like walking through the woods in Florida is not the smartest idea I have ever had. I feel like in Pennsylvania, you can kind of get away with it. What are you gonna run into, a deer? I mean, you're pretty much good to go. But Florida, there are snakes, there are fire ants, there are very, very large spiders that I have seen hanging in between trees before. Honestly, I can deal with the fire ants. I can deal with the alligators. I can deal with the snakes. If I run into a giant spider, I will scream and run and cry and freak out. So I probably shouldn't be walking through these woods, but I'm intrigued. Look at the palm trees growing here. It's beautiful. I mean, as much as you probably want to stay away from the wildlife of Florida, and as much as walking through the woods in Florida seems like a terrible idea, I gotta say, it is beautiful with, again, the palm trees. It is pretty awesome. But yeah, see, I see this and I question, like, why is the ground that color? Is that, like, is this a giant nest of fire ants? You know what? It could be. Or maybe it's just sand. I have no idea. I'm a northerner. I'm a greenhorn when it comes to this kind of stuff. You guys can clue me in. Is that just sand? Is it just sandy soil? It did say the tree was growing in sandy soil. So maybe that's just what it is. But it also doesn't look good. I'm not going to walk any further. But I do just want to show you guys how beautiful this is. I'm looking forward to moving down here and spending time walking through the woods and whatnot. I've seen a lot of parks though where they have like boardwalks that kind of go through areas like this that are all marshy and swampy. Looking forward to walking some of those. See, is that just something falling from the tree? Is that an alligator? I don't know what I'm hearing, but I think I should just be smart and not walk through the woods of the swamps of Florida. It just seems like a bad idea. I'll probably continue to do it over the years. One of these days, I'm gonna meet an alligator, or worse, a very large spider. So as I was standing around taking some pictures, I overheard a group of people who were out here looking at this tree. I'm not sure if they're locals or not, but they were saying that this right here is not a branch that kind of like sort of comes off the tree somehow, which didn't really make much sense to me anyway. They were saying that what this is a branch that fell off the tree and replanted itself. So you can see there's all kinds of limbs missing from the tree. Apparently this here, or again, so they were saying, is a branch that fell off the tree, fell to the ground, and kind of replanted itself into the soil and started growing again. I don't know how truthful that is. I have no idea, but if that's the case, that is pretty interesting. They seemed very sure of themselves. They seemed like they knew what they were talking about. They knew that for a fact, this was a branch that had fallen off the tree and replanted itself here in the soil to continue to grow. Like I said, I do not know if that's the truth or not. I have no idea. If you know, leave a comment down below, but that's what they were saying. This branch once came from that tree, fell or was moved here, and began, or continued, I should say, to grow. That is interesting. That is really cool. This tree just gets more and more interesting as I'm out here reading things and listening to people talk. Very cool. Giant oak tree. Hardwood oak, as I'm gonna call it, the hardwood oak tree, as his spirit is the one that still haunts the tree, still haunts the land, supposedly. Or so it is said. Fairchild, he came out here, he studied the tree, important man, important botanist, but I'm gonna call it the hardwood tree, because in my opinion, again, that's who it should be named after. He was the original owner of the land. He was the one who died mysteriously, whether it was by the hands of somebody else, whether it was an accident, whether he took his own life. Regardless, he supposedly is still here to this day, haunting the land and everybody who comes to visit his massive, giant, mighty oak tree. And as you can hear off in the distance, there are a lot of people here. This park, again, is very, very popular. The parking lot is completely filled with people coming to visit this tree. Every couple of minutes, there's people walking over here, taking photos, reading the signs. But I wonder, do they know that at this moment right now, they're probably being watched and haunted by a spirit. again, the park is hopping. There's some more people walking over there to actually take a look at the oak. Wanted to walk over and see what this sign says. It says Fairchild Oak. Fairchild Oak. This live oak tree has withstood hurricanes, winds, fires, droughts, wars, and the follies of mankind for centuries. Please help us by protecting this magnificent tree by not climbing on its ancient limbs. Thank you, Florida Park Service. So they do ask you to stay off of the trees here, which makes sense. You would not want to climb on these trees. You would not want to desecrate these trees. You would not want to ruin something amazing like a 2,000 or more appropriately, probably a 400 to 600 year old tree that again is haunted, which is the part that intrigues me the most. As much as I wanted to see this tree, as soon as I found out the possibility of it being haunted, I knew I had to come out here and check this out. And if you were to do something as foolish as to desecrate the tree, as to climb on its limbs, to ruin it, to carve your name into it or something like that, clearly the spirit of Harwood would follow you home. It would haunt you. You would be haunted for the rest of your life by desecrating his tree. So I would recommend not doing that. You see, as I'm saying that, the breeze is picking up. Harwood's listening to us right now. He's agreeing with me. He's saying yes. See? He's saying yes. Do not mess with my tree. You mess with my tree, I'm gonna mess with you. So I'm just gonna look from a distance and admire the mighty oak tree here on what once was Harwood's property. That is awesome looking. All right, guys, so with that, I do think that is about gonna do it because I still have to drive all the way back to Pennsylvania. I am only maybe about hour and a half, 2 hours away from my home here in Florida. I have to drive back to my home in Pennsylvania, which is a good day and a half-ish journey. So I do have to hit the road. But again, wanted to pull over here, wanted to check out this amazing tree, the Fairchild Oak, AKA, or as I'm gonna call it, the hardwood oak, named after either the botanist who studied the tree and brought soybeans to the United States, or the more interesting Harwood, who was the original owner of the property, whose life was mysteriously taken, whether by his hands, again, by accident, or by somebody else. Who knows? Nobody really knows the mystery of how he passed away. They say it was an accident, but was it? Nobody really knows. But supposedly, to this day, his spirit haunts this tree and this property and everybody who comes out to see it. And that is awesome. So, all right, guys, again, with that, we are done. So, as always, guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, check down below for links to Patreon. If you guys do become a patron, I will send you a postcard every single month from the road. Also, check down below for a link to Spreadshirt, where you can grab yourself retro rest stop t-shirts. I'm freezing right now. Where you can grab retro rest stop t-shirts. Proceeds, both from Spreadshirt and from Patreon, do help support the show, and they do keep the show going. So I really do appreciate the help and appreciate the support. And if you guys watch this video all the way until the very end, hashtag the ghost of Harwood, HARWOOD, the ghost of Harwood, hashtag that. If you guys watch this video all the way until the very end. All right, guys, like I said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you do hit that subscribe button, or you are subscribed, then I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys. Bye. And as amazing as the tree is, if you're driving down 95 and you gotta go, they've got restrooms here, and they're actually fairly clean. I like this park.